Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and welcome to version 6.9 of Gems of War. Today we're going to be going over the price to pay event in which the Assessor of Mahat is added to the game, and as well as everything that changed with version 6.9. So, of course, technically we had this patch last Tuesday, but we didn't get the full effect of it until today. So there were two main things that the patch ended up doing, with one smaller minor thing. The minor thing basically being they reworked a couple of the early game stuff. There's like a few new weapons. You'll be able to get these on the upcoming event weeks. For example, the upcoming ones at Broken Spire, Farce of Thorns, and Glacial Peaks. But they don't really do much, but they're basically a new choice that newer players get, like right when they start the game, as one of the newer weapons that they end up getting to utilize. And based on what they do, it seems like the green one is among one of the better ones, oddly enough. With the red one being the weirdest one. I'm not sure if it gets good perks under that, but it seems so weak compared to the other two, at least based on just the upfront ability of it. But anyways, we ended up getting that, some changes to the early game with that, but two big changes. The biggest one, and probably most controversial one, which is the one you've probably already seen, because this one has been available since Tuesday, is the trial rework. So basically every single Monday now we will be going over the trial team. I am considering covering a master video one. I was meant to do it last weekend, but did not have time. But if you guys are still interested in that, covering a team order for all 37 of these, as you can actually do these whenever. However, the main mechanic of this is, of course, trials. These kind of always existed, but now instead of being 7 battles, they're 1. You still get the full amount of loot from them. However, you are forced to have to use a specific team to try to learn a specific mechanic. This one obviously being very, very skull-based in its mechanic. And you just have to do that for every single one of the fights. You can't change your banner, you cannot change your team. However, you can change your order. And there are multiple different orders that you can end up doing each one of them with. Since we're already here, we might as well explain this one pretty briefly. So as I mentioned, we already have a huge amount of skulls. We have Bone Dragon doing its armor tier. We have Apophysis doing its skull spam. And we have Keeper of Souls also doing its skull spam. This does mean we can technically just completely scrap the Carrion Crow if we so choose. It's some damage, and if it gets a kill, it does get to create some skulls. However, it does have double damage to undead, so if you have a really high magic, it might be worth keeping around. Otherwise, you might just want to scrap it immediately and go all into the skull route. Basically, when playing this battle, especially if you're doing it with a first slot Bone Drag, slightly less so if you're doing a second slot. But your main priority is absolutely kill War Sphinx as quickly as possible. It has Impervious, so you cannot do the freeze mechanic immediately. Bone Dragon has an interesting mechanic in that it freezes whenever skull damage is done to it. However, it actually takes place immediately, which is unique currently only to Bone Dragon. For example, if someone takes a 4 times skull against you, or 5 times, or any amount that's an extra turn, that's specifically only skulls, and they end up hitting on this trait, they will actually lose their turn. The freeze takes place before the check on the extra turn. So this is very useful, so you want to get rid of this Impervious so you can then utilize it. That, or just use the Carrion Crow as your tank. Make sure you get rid of that War Sphinx if you need to at the higher level range, and then go end up killing it out with all your skull spam that you have, which you definitely have a lot of. You have the immediate Apophysis for a bunch of life to your first ally, which is one of the reasons I also want to kind of do with Bone Dragon, just to kind of keep the Bone Dragon a little bit more alive if we can. You also have Resummon off of Keeper Souls, which is nice. You have really controlled skull spam. Overall, it's not the easiest, not the hardest. It's towards the mid-range of them. Some of them are completely insufferable. Some of them are like auto-win, click button, kind of like last week. If you did the one from last week for Vulpacia, basically you just keep clicking the same button over and over again and you win until it misses. And then you just restart if it misses too much. This one you have to put a little bit more effort into. However, it's definitely not one of the harder ones out there, luckily. But yeah, we have that for every single kingdom, and you also get pets for that now. So if I go over to the pets tab, ooh, tribute, gotta grab that. Tribute's as good as ever. Nice 30 tribute for the 29. Anyways, what am I looking for? I am looking for pets. So if I click on unowned here, we are going to see 1 billion unowned pets. And if I actually go to Kedar, I shouldn't own the Kedar one yet. I'm not sure if they fixed the offer for it yet. I hope they have. There was a glitch with it, and they had to make it basically cost 1 million gems. You might have seen it in order to make sure the glitch didn't occur. I personally didn't have any issue with it when I went for it, but apparently there was an issue with it overall. So they had to make some tweaks. I'm not sure if that's been fixed at this exact moment in time, but hopefully they do soon if it's not fixed now. But anyways, like for example, this is the pet that you can end up getting this week for completing out the Kedar Elite Challenges, I guess it would be called. Which essentially, if we go to a normal kingdom, let's say Whitehelm, have we not finished all of them? Good. So for example, Whitehelm, you see, only goes up to tier 10. This is because it is not a Whitehelm event week. It is a Kedar event week. So with a Kedar event week, it now goes all the way to an extra 5 tiers. It has these little star thingies around it, and it goes currently up to 350. There's also an issue with it initially where it went up to 500, which honestly, even 350 seems too high. I feel like 250 should be like as high as it goes. But yeah, they go pretty high, to say the least. They get really bulky. And basically every single one of these battles is the exact same battle, but just keeps getting tankier and tankier and tankier. which means you need more and more luck to end up winning, unless you have like an auto win option on the given team. But completing out these gives you copies of that troop, and you have an offer for 200 gems if they fixed it, where you can buy a bunch of it, and that's actually enough to get a max pet for only 1,000 gems, which is very worth it. Normally to get a max pet is about 2,500, and while 1,000 over the course of every single kingdom being 37,000 might sound like a pretty intimidating number, it's over a pretty long period of time, so it's not that huge of a number. Earlier on in the game, obviously you'd probably ignore the gem offers, but later in the game, 1,000 gems for a max pet is honestly not bad at all. And I believe the pet actually does kingdom bonus, if I'm not mistaken. So an extra kingdom bonus on top of your kingdom bonus, which is huge whenever you use 2, 3, or 4 from the same kingdom. So overall, that's a huge buff to using same kingdom troops. Something that's been a bit of an issue is stats keep going higher and higher. There's less incentive to use the team stats. And now that they're just doing a straight up buff to it, corresponding over the course of basically 37 weeks as we go through every single kingdom, possibly more if they repeat, obviously. But we'll be able to have basically double the kingdom bonus. So that definitely makes running pure kingdom teams or even partial kingdom teams a lot more viable than it was in the past. So that's pretty cool. Anyways, the controversial part is you're forced into a single team and it just keeps becoming bullet sponges. But honestly, I kind of enjoy the format personally. I just feel like it overstays its welcome and gets way too tanky. But otherwise, I personally enjoy it compared to the older system. It's actually quicker, as long as the team isn't like horrific like some of the kingdoms, which we haven't gotten any of them yet. Volpesi was super easy, Kidar's kind of mid-range, but some of them are super bad. Anyways, aside from that, the other main change that they did was, of course, a campaign rework. As you saw, campaign got delayed by 2 weeks because, well, they needed to push out this patch. From my testing in 10 minutes, this is how much progress I was able to get. Obviously, this could vary week to week. These tasks might also be harder on subsequent weeks. We don't really know how that's going to work because obviously the first week generally is the easiest one. The final week is the hardest. So maybe the harder, the final few weeks will take way longer than this. But from 10 minutes of testing, I got 2/3 or even more than 2/3, depending on how you look at it, completed. So yeah, that's not that bad at all. And this is passive completion too. Like you could completely ignore it. Like I was trying to deliberately get it done, as you normally would on these Monday things, just to get it done on Monday. However, you could just ignore these the entire week and probably still have it done by Sunday. They're all really easy things that just automatically get done. Kill enemies in any battle, easy. You literally just play the game doing anything, unless you're just treasure hunting the whole time. Where's that treasure hunt buff coming? Hopefully in 7.0, who knows? 7.1 or something, we'll see. But next, kill purple enemies. So this is super easy. Just go to anywheres with a lot of purple. I personally did it mostly in Cinemirage. I did a couple of it in Kedar, just kind of test, but it was just easier doing it with Dust Devil Quick Kill there. And then you had match skull gems in any battle, which there's a lot of mechanics this week that create skulls. You need it for almost every event. Even the world event, you have extra skull damage. So a lot of things you have access to this additional skull. So overall, 3 really easy things. And yeah, even if I ignored these, I'm pretty sure we'd have it done by like Wednesday, Thursday. And if you rush them, I think my quickest time before the change was around 23 minutes. And 10 minutes in, we are 2/3 done, meaning this is on pace for a 15-minute completion, which is half the time. Well, maybe not half, but because normally it would take about 30-ish minutes, give or take like several minutes. And right now it seems to be like 15 to 20, at least this late in the game, obviously. Earlier on, it might take longer, but honestly, just get it done passively. There's not even much of a need to rush it anymore unless there's like a good reward on a given week. Speaking of which, they have completely butchered the screen. Not the screen. So this is basically how it progresses now. Essentially, as you get some of the progress done, you can claim some of the stars. You get 50 of the stars from bronze. Oh, it even tells you right up there. 30 from the silver and 20 from the bronze. They also added like a different way to like skip it. Yeah, I think it's this button right over here. No, yes, no. You have to collect it first. You're never going to bother clicking it though. There's no point to spend gems on these when they're this easy to complete. But yeah, we just collect all these. We just get our stars. And obviously if we complete out the rest of these, well, we'll get the rest of the stars. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's honestly, this part right here, great change. Whatever on earth this visual mess is, not a great change. So I'm not sure what on earth this interface change was for this menu. But not a fan. Not sure if they're going to tweak it or not. But yeah, there's just too much going on down here. Really hard to visually read what's going on. But all the same stuff's still down here. As far as the weapon is concerned, it's either good or bad depending on how this works. I'm slightly confused on the wording as we don't have a similar mechanic quite yet. Basically, this explodes a column and creates Deathmark Gem. Oh yeah, also we got the addition of Deathmark Gem. I'll be explaining that in a little bit. But long story short, they basically do Deathmark to a random enemy when they are destroyed. They are colorless gems, so you do have to destroy them, either through Doom Skulls, destroying the board, exploding the board, so forth. But anyways, it destroys a column, or explodes a column, and creates a Deathmark Gem for each skull or purple gem in the chosen column. So what I'm not sure about this is, does it mean the chosen column as in specifically the vertical column in which you choose or the entire 3x3 column in which you choose. Because if it's the entire just 1x1 column that you choose, this is going to create barely any gems. If it's a 3x3, we're talking like 12 to 15. And you're already taking out 1/3 the board with this, so if you're creating 5-ish gems on 1/3 less board, that's kind of bad. If you're creating 15-ish gems to a similar board that's already 1/3 reduced, then okay, that's going to be kind of good. But based on how it's worded, it seems like it'll only work on the 1x1 column, not the 3x3. So we'll have to see exactly how it works out. But overall, it seems kind of average. There's better ways to Deathmark out there. There's better ways to man accumulate from hero, a billion of them. So I don't really see the weapon getting used much. One that could be used is the tarot card. Also, 2 more tarot cards in drop table, by the way. Though technically only 1. They said 2 on the post, but Ace of Wands, I believe, is already in drop table because I have like 9 copies of it. So it had to have been. But they also added one of the other ones. I can't remember its name. I have the thingy in a second while we get to it. But anyways, create 2 Deathmark Gems, and then there's 7% chance of an extra turn for each purple gem on the board. So basically this is okay. Not the best tarot card, not the worst. It can man accumulate into itself. That's kind of cool. All right, never mind. No, it can't. I keep thinking this is purple. So yeah, this is mostly just to pressure Deathmarks. So if you want to go and extra turns based on purple, but Deathmark Gems are not purple. I thought this before it came in, but they are not like Lycanthropy. Lycanthropy are a purple gem that also do annoying mechanics similar to this Deathmark Gem, but these are actually colorless gems that do the same. So you have to explode them and everything and just kind of block the board. But blocking the board can be good. Being able to block out the enemy from being able to convert and such can be a pretty good mechanic, and then you just clear it out yourself. The AI tends to not function too well against it either, because, you know, they don't really go and prioritize destroying it all when they need to. They just keep doing whatever they normally do and kind of ignore their existence for the most part. So you could definitely take advantage of it generally more than the AI can, which is always nice. There's a few other gems like that you can do similar to. And Deathmark's definitely in that category. But overall, it's a pretty average tarot card. There's already better ways to Deathmark out there, so I don't really see a reason to use it. So as far as the mythic that we end up getting, we're also getting a mythic this Friday, by the way. Another one for Groshnock, which, oddly enough, is not horrible. It's not the best mythic out there, but it's better than what normally exists in Groshnock, that's for sure. But anyways, this is one from Pridelands. It's actually very similar to an already existing Pridelands troop that has a 2-to-1 boost ratio based on its life that does physical damage. However, this one does true damage. So this is actually viable to some degree. The only big issue is this 22 mana cost instead of like 20 or something similar. I believe the other guy that does physical damage is like a 12 mana cost comparatively, so not ideal. However, what he does get to do is if an enemy dies, he gets to explode all Deathmark Gems. So he almost reminds me of Arachne Weaver, slightly, not exactly. But in the fact that he has like a super high true damage, and if he gets a kill, he basically gets a bunch of mana accumulation. The biggest issue with this is how many Deathmark Gems are you realistically going to have on a board at any given time. Obviously, we're going to be getting a bunch of mechanics for it over the next 10 weeks, but is it going to be enough to actually make this troop viable is the main question. Otherwise, he's pretty much just a true damage poke that's pretty average and on line with most other true damage pokes in the game. And for how high his mana cost is just to kill one troop, it's probably not going to get used. He does get to convert 2 yellow gems to Deathmark Gems at the beginning of every single turn, and then you can clear the board after several turns and kind of go down that route. But for the most part, Deathmark spamming an opposing team doesn't really do too much. The way that Deathmark, as well as Lycanthropy, ends up working is on the very first turn you get Deathmarked or Lycanthroped, you are immune to the 10% chance that it ends up converting you, or in the case of Lycanthropy, 15%. But you're immune to that 10% convert, or the 10% insta-kill in the case of Deathmark. And the problem with this is if you keep reapplying Deathmark in the current state of the game, it keeps reapplying that 10% delay. So, or the 1-turn delay. So let's say you Deathmark the entire enemy team, they are now immune the following turn. You then go and Deathmark the entire team again. Well, they are also immune the following turn. So if you keep Deathmarking every single time, you're not going to be able to kill them. And let's say you're even just doing it every other turn just because you're just converting the board a ton and just getting a lot of cycling going. Well, that means every other turn, they are immune to death from the Deathmark. So that's a lot of turns where Deathmark is just doing nothing. I'm not sure if they'll eventually change this mechanic so that when you reapply Deathmark, you know, you'll still have the 10% chance. But it still has not been changed over the last several years. It did get reworked a while back, but they haven't really touched it since then. So in the current state of the game, Deathmark, not the greatest. Obviously, when it kills you out of nowhere or kills the enemy out of nowhere, it's nice. But more often than not, Deathmark is one of those stats effects that just is a cosmetic on the enemy, does nothing the entire time, and then just goes away after a couple turns. That's pretty much the life cycle of a Deathmark. Or instantly kills your entire team in one turn due to pure RNG. So there's always that. But anyways, that's a whole rundown on all the changes, as well as this the campaign and everything. So let's go into the actual things we have going on this week, so we can make some progress here. So first things first, the Assessor of Mahat. So if you need a bunch of blue-purple arcanes, great time to stock up. They're only 200 glory each as far as mass buying them. As far as the troop itself, it's average. I don't really foresee myself using this much. Yeah, but however, it is pretty much the only way to really do Deathmark Gem mechanic at the moment if you want to mess around with it. But there are already other better Deathmark options out there, so probably no need to really mess with this. So we will mess with it for one team in a moment here, just to kind of show what it does. But anyways, it converts 2 purple gems to Deathmark Gems, and then converts all yellow gems to Doom Skulls. There are a lot of things that convert yellow to skulls, particularly Doom Skulls and Uber Doom Skulls. I'm not sure why, but when I was just like trying to build a team with it, I did not realize how many billion things convert out yellow. It is actually insane compared to like any other color. So it's a little bit hard for him to kind of synergize with a lot of those Doom Skull options, because almost everything is converting either the color to a color, as far as yellow, or, you know, away from the color, or converting it already into Doom Skulls or Uber Doom Skulls or some kind of similar mechanic. It is everywhere. It does have Necromancy, so a little bit extra souls. I don't really foresee that getting used much, though. But let's go mess with that a little bit, so we can also go show the new mechanic. So let's go to, like, Sword's Edge or something. Why am I on 7? Okay, let's bring it up to 12. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter too much. Maybe I should keep it at 7. But anyways, where's the team? For a second, I thought I didn't say my teams. That'd be so bad. Oh, yeah, the Vault Key drops. This is what I was talking about earlier. This was the one I forgot about. High Priestess is now in drop table, supposedly. I've not actually gotten a copy of it yet, but according to the weekly post, it is. They also mentioned Ace of Wands is available now. However, it's been available for a while, because I have 9. So it's been out for at least a month now, or at least a couple of weeks. I haven't been opening that many last week, so that's been out for a couple of weeks already, but at least High Priest is in there now. I know for sure I only have 1 copy of that. So supposedly that's in drop table. Haven't seen it yet, mostly because I haven't opened any Vault Keys since then. But anyways, here's a Doom Skull related team, basically utilizing the new mechanic. So we're not going to get the pop-up since we already saw it earlier. However, we do need to get something going as far as this board is concerned. The only big issue is, at least with this particular team that we're running right now, we do not have a particularly high amount of mana accumulation on it. Once we get the Doom Skulls rolling, or even just hit a skull, we can start to get a lot of value going pretty quick. So, of course, as we already read from him, he converts 2 purples into those Doom Skull gems. However, we don't want to do that quite yet. Ideally, we want just a single skull poke so we can get this rolling, but we'll take the brown, hope it surges. Okay, that should be good enough. So there's also the Deathmark Gem. So as you can see, this cannot be swiped into anything. Like, it's not a purple or anything. It's just literally typeless. So you would have to go and end up destroying it out in order to get any value from it. So we do a blue to brown. Come on, can anything get alignment? There's a little bit of alignment. I want to cast something. Let's see. Even just the slightest bit of alignment we're going for. Okay, we got the slightest bit of alignment. Go, go, go. Alright, this does end up doing it to normal skull, so I actually want to do this one first, so we can clear enough of the board to then be able to do the other one, which I'm not sure we got enough of. We'll take that one over. But as you can see, it does end up deathmarking random enemy. Will it kill it? Will it not? Who knows? Alright, let's go convert brown just to get that rolling. Then we'll hopefully have yellow alignment on the other one. Not quite. Kind of still just want to cast it just to get it out there, though. There we go. Now we have alignment, so we can take that, get our nice big, and as you can see, you pretty much just immediately deathmark most of the team. We have potentially up to a double deathmark, of course, and with that double deathmark, you basically just get to, you know, deathmark. And the only problem with that is if you're already looping, like the state that we're already in, we're getting quite a bit less value because we're already, you know, like infinite looping. So, I don't know. Deathmark has always been a weird mechanic in this game. Also, I have another Deathmark off of Lord Slaughter, which is why we did that, though. Again, overly Deathmarking, not a good idea. But I still wanted it for the slight synergy, just so we can kind of get everything on it. But generally, at that point, you would then want to, like, stall. But then you just have to tank the enemy, but then you're giving the enemy a bunch of mana. Deathmark has always been such a weird mechanic. You definitely have to watch out for it this week. Definitely carry cleanses more than you would and stuff like that. Because you just randomly dying to it is going to be a lot of deaths this next 10 weeks. The amount of deaths that will occur from random death marks is going to be ridiculously high, especially in Guild War. So you do have to maybe carry some Orpheuses around this week, maybe like 20% into 2 Orpheus or something similar, as it won't really help you that much offensively, because if you're already looping, it doesn't help you. But you're definitely going to need it defensively, just to get rid of it, because you do not want to just randomly die in Guild War or something that requires Sigil or any other event that has a limited amount of battles that you can end up doing. So, but you can also utilize it the other way around. For example, though it doesn't really apply to Kedar this week, but on other weeks, they generally won't have immune to Deathmark. Unfortunately, this week they have immune to Deathmark on like everything, because they're all undead. But on, let's say, next week's trial, it is probably not going to be like a pure undead spam. Actually, can we still see? I didn't actually check that. Can we see what next week's week is already? Because, well, actually, I already know. Yes, next week is... Gosh, why do I forget what background this is? No, I think it's the one all the way in top left. What was that one called? Wait, why do I forget what background this is? No! That one's Adana. Actually, that's probably when we're getting the Adana rework, by the way. A couple weeks from now. Why on earth do I forget what kingdom that is? Wow, I actually forget from this current little thing. Oh, you know which one this is? Because I memorized it from the right side. I believe this one is actually Pan's Vale, right? Gosh, I do not remember based on that. Yeah, it is Pan's Vale. Haha! I remember it based on the right side, not the left side. So it threw me off there. But yeah, that's a Pan's Vale event week. So for Pan's Vale, obviously we won't have to deal with that mechanic. You can end up deathmarking them to kind of cheese this if you want to. No immune to deathmark, no immune to deathmark, no immune to deathmark. And guess what? No immune to deathmark. So like for weeks like this, you could just cheese it like crazy in order to just deathmark spam down their entire team with the new gem and kind of get it down that way if you really, really wanted to do it. So the Deathmark Gem will at least have some kind of purpose, as it might make those new trials a little bit easier during Restoration, which you can always just save those trials for, well, maybe not during the event week, but any of the other ones, if you're trying to get to 10, you can kind of save it for when you have a better gem. And with the Deathmark Gem, that is a better gem as far as killing harder content is concerned, assuming the battle does not have a billion immune to Deathmarks like this week does, where, of course, immune with Impervious, immune with Undead, immune to with Undead, and immune with Undead, so you can't really utilize it this week, unfortunately, which is kind of ironic, given that it came out this week. Anyways, so next thing's next. Let's go to the guild event. So we only have one guild event, unlike last week where we had 3. We had like the whole list of things going on here, including Guild War. But anyways, we have the in the end event. As far as our buff, we have everything. So we have scroll damage and spell damage. This is really good because we have a lot of access to both mechanics. All you really need to know is just don't take Revenant and do it in rarity order. As long as you're doing that, you'll be getting the maximum amount of points. But yeah, we have Generator, War Masters, specifically under purple. Pretty noteworthy. You have access to Leprechaun. You do have access to Empower Skulls. You have access to... What was the main gimmick I did on the other one? Oh, yeah, Vinoxia. Vinoxia is insane. If you have Vinoxia, just run like double Vinoxia and just go that way. It's going to be very broken because you have access to extra spell damage as well. So you'll just be able to keep looping it, do it, just wipe out the team instantly, mana accumulate back into yourself. It's going to be crazy. But if you need something cheaper, you do have access to Empower Skulls. You have access to Leprechaun, which pretty much every single one of these teams is probably going to use, most likely. You have access to Black Manacle and a few other similar weapons. So there's plenty to use for this event. Should be a relatively straightforward one. Anyways, aside from that, what else do we have? Let's go over all of the weekly things we have here. So, you can still spend your excess spring events. You cannot earn any more points. However, if you still have any points remaining, you can go and spend them over the next week if you forgot to do so. However, you cannot do any more battles, so you cannot earn any more points, but you can spend whatever you still have. If you are still buying out with any points, of course, the 2 highest priority, at least personally in my opinion, are the 2 that we don't know when they're ever going to come back, that being the Spring Armor and the Pet 6 times so you can get up to Golden Pet. Aside from that, Beltane will be available in several weeks from now, so you can just completely wait on that and don't even need to bother getting it at this point. And of course, there's a Power Orb there too if you want to get it. However, a Power Orb is nothing unique. It's just some extra currency. Anyways, aside from that, all the other things we have going on. Tuesday, we have ourselves the Fang Moor faction event. This is a red-blue restriction. Basic strategy with this is you just run the double of the tank, 1 mana accumulator and 1 skull spammer. For the pure faction, you're pretty much just good to go. You have access to red-blue, so you do have access to Iron Gut Zolgoth, so it should be pretty straightforward, luckily. If you need a mana accumulator, you're likely going to have to go down the Harpy Mage route. Basically get a turn to Empower. Wednesday, we're going to be getting the Undead Skull. I believe this is literally just Undead Team Bonus, if I'm not mistaken. Thursday, we have the Clash Trial for Necromancer. Necromancer, not the worst, not the best. It's a pretty average hero class. Does a little bit of everything, but there's just other things that tend to excel instead of it. So unless you're building like a pure Kedar team like this Thursday or something similar, it doesn't tend to get used too often. It's not a bad class by any means, though. But it has a lot of mechanics that are just really average or slightly above average, and there's just other classes that do it better in almost every situation. It does have the highest amount of soul gain compared to any hero class, but there's already soul farming teams that do it way better than the hero class does. And this Friday, we're going to be having an arena event, which means we have no event this Friday. Anyways, as far as troops are concerned, pretty underwhelming Soulforge as far as troops. I would just straight up skip everything unless you need something for completionist sake. Nothing particularly special. Though one kind of funny thing. Oh yeah, I didn't go over event keys. Hold up. I was going to say, you can get Keeper of Souls and event keys or Soulforge. I would advise getting in event keys if you're going to bother. But yeah, I didn't go over the event key drop table. So as we mentioned a billion times by now, it is a Kedar event week. Oh yeah, I didn't even set up the little thingy for it. I normally like doing that so we don't have to click a couple times. Otherwise, we have to click all the way over here and then click on the other thing. But let's just go get to it real quick. If we can figure out how the alphabet works, do that. Do it by base rarity. Do it by show all in case we're missing something. I don't think we are, though. But Kedar can reach 25 stars as of this week. As far as the troops here, I would say it's pretty average these days, maybe even slightly below average. It has a lot of scroll options, which is pretty cool. A lot of utility troops, a lot of things you might use occasionally. Farish Raw back in the day used to be insane, so unfortunately he's kind of fallen off. He's still a great way to get souls, but as far as soul farm teams, as far as like damage output, they're not the greatest. But you can still, it's still good value to end up getting one. You just wouldn't really run double Farish Raw or triple Farish Raw in the current state of game anymore. Rothamon is okay as well. I personally don't feel like I utilize him too much, but he's very similar to like Wild King, Wild Queen, and what he ends up ultimately doing. And he has 4 times cleanse while doing skull damage, something that used to exist on Legends. I believe they've removed from every Legend, but now they're starting to give it to Mythic, so that's kind of cool. It's a mechanic that most notably Divinish Bala used to have. Divinish Bala used to do double convert, the current double convert it has, into a full cleanse on team while still enchanting. And obviously they've removed the cleanse and nerfed its mana. However, they did give this guy the full cleanse, so the main gimmick of this, of course, is you can skull spam while not having to worry about freeze. So if you end up getting frozen on your first slot, well, you don't need to worry about losing your turn. So it has that going for it, so that's kind of nice. Its traits are pretty abysmal, though, unfortunately. But yeah, pretty average things. Keeper of Souls is just a nice way to control the board. Bone Dragon has that freeze mechanic I'm talking about. That's unique only to him still to this day, oddly enough. Like 5 years later, 6 years later. And there's some utility troops like Setite Warrior. As far as what's not in drop table, the only things that are not in drop table here are obviously the 5 faction troops. From Fang Moor, and yes, 5. I did get a deep delve. Unfortunately, the 5th one is very useless. However, there are 5. But all 5 of those are not in drop table. And I believe that's actually it, oddly enough. Just those 5. And nothing else. Everything else here is available. But overall, it's pretty skippable week, unless you're just looking for some skull utility troops or try to get your fair shraw for a soul farming team. Personally, I find it's just better to farm vault events, like we just had the other weekend, and not last weekend, but the weekend before last weekend. But you can still do actual soul farming if you feel like you need some more. And Fair Shraw is still the way of doing it if you're lucky to do so. And honestly, all 3 of these aren't horrible. They're not the greatest mythics out there, but this thing's a good cursed death marker, which not used too often, but it does have that mechanic. Fair Shraw is still the best thing in the entire game for overall soul accumulation. And Rothamon is just a cool cleanse skull spammer. Very situational, but still usable. But yeah, it's an okay kingdom. It comes to 25 star, which means you can now get the extra little bit of gold every single day. From getting up to here, the 2,000 gold, I believe it is. Yeah, so you can get up to that point if you so choose. I believe it's also an armor kingdom, so if you want to get 10 star, 20 star, you can get some additional armor that way from leveling up the kingdom through the power stars at 5, 10, 20. So reaching those milestones might be worthwhile if you want to go buff up your Ruane team or Guards Avatar team or anything else that uses armor in any way, shape, or form. Anyways, is that everything? I think we have done all the things, so let's go over all the teams. Oh, wait, I didn't go over weapons. Hold up. I got distracted when I went to the thing. So there are weapons this week, obviously. The most noteworthy weapon that is available, and the one I would highly advise getting, there's basically 2, but one I would say super high priority. Of course, it's Book. Anytime there's Book, you should probably go for Book. Earlier on in the game, this might not matter as much, but if you've ever played Guild War, you've probably seen the 10,000 books that exist in Guild War, and you probably also want to add your 1 to that. But yeah, it's ran almost every Guild War day. Very popular option. Still absolutely insane, at least from a Guild War Defend perspective. Biggest downside of these books is they're pretty much not used in any other circumstance currently within the game. However, they are pretty much the entire meta for Defend teams. Obviously, you can run other things, but they are an exceedingly popular option with double empower, triple empower, or just any composition to try to work with it, either with stealthy hero classes, elementalists, and any other strong combination that exists within the game. So if you're in a higher guild, it's definitely advised getting them. If you're earlier on, it's pretty skippable until a little bit later, as Defend teams on Guild War don't really matter too much, but it is something you want to eventually get at some point if you have the resources to. As far as actual overall useful things, I would say it's Dead Gauntlet. Dead Gauntlet falls in a really weird category where undeads don't really have too many good ways of mana accumulating. However, this weapon doesn't really synergize too well with it. It does have Bone Storm, which is nice, but undeads generally either go all in true damage or all in skulls. And this weapon doesn't really do either particularly well. Well, for one, it's physical damage, so it doesn't do the true damage part really well. And the only thing it has going for skulls is clearing out the board a little bit and having a Bone Storm, which you might already have through other options on your team. So it's a very situational weapon that you would run with 4 times Undead. However, there are multiple kingdoms based heavily on Undead, or partially on Undead. And all those kingdoms, and all those troops in general, can kind of correlate together to somewhat build teams. But it just feels in a really weird category where it mana accumulates well for them, but doesn't really damage well for them. So it's still, I feel like, a weapon I use on occasion, but there's a lot of undeads to be able to use with it, so it's definitely the highest priority one if you are going to get one of the other ones that isn't Book if you already have Book. And the rest are just, just standard explodey stuff and stuff like that, so if you just want them for completionist sake, or just have another explodey weapon. But anyways, that's all run down there. So now let's finally go into all the teams, all of which will be in the description below if you want to go and copy-paste any of them. So let's start all the way from the top. Oh yeah, that was just explaining the vault key thing. Here's the actual Deathmark team. I'm not sure if this is really much of a team. I mostly just did it to show the Deathmark mechanic. Just kind of scrap something together that could also do some of the event. Oh yeah, that reminds me. I don't really have a dedicated team to show the event every single week. I guess I will show it this week just to kind of show I don't have the teams like all the way there, but I just click on them. But I'm not sure if I'm going to show it every single week for the main reason. Obviously, trials I'll show every single week because that's really important just to, kind of know order. There's obviously multiple ways you could do it depending on how you want to play it. However, just kind of showing like one possible optimal one we'll end up doing for that. However, when it comes to doing the trials now, not the trials, but doing the campaign tasks, you basically just use, whatever quick kill you want. You could use Rowan, Dust Devil, Zolgoth. Like, showing that every single week will basically be the same thing most weeks. And that's the objective drastically changes. So I'm not sure exactly how we're going to go about that, but if you have any suggestion in the comment section, definitely feel free to leave it, as it's going to be almost the exact same team every single week. So I'm not sure if it really makes sense to, just mention the exact same team every week then, if that is going to be the case. But anyways, so as far as world event, Vinoxia is probably your best way to go. You can convert green into it. That troop also uses blue, so Vinoxia creates blue and green. This then gets to blue and converts yellow to green. You then go Vinoxia again. You keep spamming Vinoxia, they die. Leprechauns for the initial mana accumulation if you don't have alignment on Malcadessa. And if you do have alignment on Malcadessa, you just immediately cast it. Spam Vinoxias until you win, and then win. Basically, as long as one of your Vinoxias are alive, you will win. Next, we have ourselves the lower variant team, which you probably saw on the other screen when we're on the world event screen. So this is just a nice, cheap, no mythic, no legend team. Actually, the other one was, oddly enough, no mythic. And this one is no legend and no mythic. Unless you count Black Manacle, but you get this for free pretty early in the game. But just doing a Black Manacle lead, which you could do to kill out the earlier fights. Basically, it's Leprechaun, Black Manacle. And then if anything survives, you have Double Skull Convert Brown to Skulls, which is not as ideal, but it's the only other one you have. Because you don't have access to the red, yellow one, or whatever the color was, because it's not purple. And Fist of Zorn, which also does an attacking. You're likely, despite them being in this order, you likely want to cast Fist of Zorn first, and then do the other one. However, you kind of do it based on whatever the board state currently is. Anyways, next one that we have here is these next three teams are for the faction, Fang Moor, on tomorrow. This is a red-blue faction that also has access to its Deep Delve variant, so a little bit of extra loot that you would end up getting there. So basically, we have just standard or Skier Shield Rowan, just with Harpy Mage, because we don't have a better mana accumulator there, just to get the turn to Empower. Next, we have a little bit of a higher variant of it, using Iron Gut Zolgoth. We can end up just going with the good old combo, have Marilith for mana accumulation, obviously Harpy Mage for the backup once again. For Pure Faction, I was kind of explaining this team a little bit earlier, but you run double of the tank, just gain a bunch of attack, do that over and over again, use 50% reduction. You then go and utilize all of your bleeds in order to get 1 billion red gems. Oh, never mind. Sorry, the other one is the one that boost ratios from bleed. So basically, you wait until there's a bunch of color on the board, and you get 1 billion reds. And then after that, once you get 1 billion bleeds, you then end up boost ratioing your skulls based on how many bleeds there are. So if you just have the entire enemy team bled, you'll end up getting, what's the math on that? 14 skulls. So pretty hefty amount of skulls for only 12 mana costs. And you just keep spamming that into your buffed up attack in order to kill out the opposing team. Not the easiest faction out there, but definitely under the easier section of them, the easier half of factions. So you want to run 2 Chief Dargons because it is definitely possible to die on one of them, particularly on the final fight. But as long as you have at least one going in and have this triple combo, you should be good to go. Anyways, next we have the Necromancer class event. This is restricted specifically to undead from Kedar. So anything that you have underneath that category, you can end up running for it. Basically, this is a quick kill Black Manacle team running Azers for a little bit of skull damage if you want, as well as Apophysis as a finisher in case they have Revive, or if you just need a little bit more damage pressure. And then next we have the Trials, which we kind of already explained earlier, and it would actually probably be a little bit easier if we explain it on the menu itself. Just again, very briefly. On this one, I'm actually just going to have the text there, because, or what the teams are, because you cannot actually copy-paste this. Your team is locked in, and you can't change the banner, you can't change your team, so you can't actually copy-paste the correct order in. So you would only need to know, like, visually, like, what the order is, text-wise. But there's a couple ways to run it. If you have really low stats, you might want to sacrifice your Carrion Crow and end up doing it that way. But your main base team that you want to run is Apophysis to Keeper of Souls. These must be in the safest positions. Keeper of Souls, so you can end up getting, ideally, some amount of resummon. And because he has really good control over skulls. Apophysis, mostly just because it covers the most amount of color. Everything here, it has no color overlap with anything, so being able to have no overlap is really nice. But it really just comes down to basically these two formats for the most part. With Bone Dragon in first being if you have higher stats, and Carrion Crow in first if you have lower stats. And just kind of gauging it that way. Of course, as you get deeper, you might want to also adjust it. Because even if you have somewhat higher stats, you know, as you get super deep into it for like the final trials at level 350 or whatever it goes up to these days, like, you know, you might want to sacrifice that because your Bone Dragon cannot freeze the Sphinx. You got to get rid of it before you can. And then you start getting the value out of Bone Dragon. So it really just depends like what point you are within the battles as far as order. But Carrion Crow, you can still get some value from it. Probably some skulls if you secure a kill. Has that little bit of damage going for it. Which is your only targetable damage, by the way. But generally, you're just going to be killing it from the top down. But if you really want to, you actually can use this to target out Keeper of Souls. Keeper of Souls is by far the biggest threat on the opposing team, and it is in the safest possible location. So there's a strategy if you really want to. If you find like everything is failing, you can actually put Carry and Crow into like a super safe position like this. Definitely not last slot. Keeper Soul should always be your last slot. But you can put it down to like pretty much third. And then you'll have the summon of the white that can target last slot. You'll have the Carry and Crow that can summon hit last slot. And you can kind of just go all in on Keeper of Souls, because that's pretty much the only thing that can really kill you, other than just the ever-presence of skulls. Because none of these actually do damage to you. It's just a skull, a super scholar, and 2 things that are just utility. So it really just depends how you want to do it. But personally, this is the way I'm going to be going into it. But there are many ways that you can structure all of these teams. But we'll just be discussing it every single week when we end up covering the video for it. And we'll go from there. But yeah, so there's definitely not only one way. It really comes down to play style and stats, I would say, more so than anything. There are a few that might be a lot more straightforward, where, you know, there's like only one way to do it. Like Volpacia was a little bit more that way, where, you know, the only way to do it last week was to infinite loop the Todd and just do that. So whatever structure you want to do to make that optimal was the main way you would go. So there wasn't as much flexibility with that one, whereas something like this, there's quite a few ways you can end up doing it based on stats and or strategy that you want to end up employing. Anyways, that will do it for now. If you still have any other questions about the patch, anything else, feel free to leave it down there in the comment section below. We will be streaming the rest of the tasks and everything tonight, so there isn't really much to do. I kind of already finished them. They are quicker than ever. Honestly, I kind of like the new task system. Unfortunately, the biggest downside of the new task system, I would say, is it doesn't have as much diversity, which is kind of the whole point, just to make it a little bit simpler. But yeah, you don't get to do like a bunch of different things now. So now on every single Monday, you know, you just kind of grind normally. You don't really have to go out of your way at all, which is, you know, a good thing and a bad thing. It's quicker, it's easier, but in the same way, you also don't really get to build proper teams. Oh yeah, that reminds me, I didn't even go over the 2 teams. I kind of mentioned them, but I'm not sure if I will every single week. Obviously, what we're doing on the Monday night, we're kind of going to be going indirectly over them. But, you know, it's all the standard quick kills you always run. Like, you know, Rowan quick kill you can run. Personally, the way that I did this week is I ran Ironhawk for example, Cinemirage. I ran Ironhawk for here because it has a really easy quick kill. You just go into here, run your Dust Devil. That's not Dust Devil team. You run your Dust Devil team or whatever you have that's similar, and, you know, just instantly dies. So that's nice. And the other thing I ended up doing is go to something like Golvania, and then ended up running a just standard Zolgoth team. So I ended up just running for the skulls. In order to get all the skulls matched, I just ended up running a team like this. And, you know, clears them out pretty quickly. Just, you know, standard Explorer 12 team for the most part. And just run that, boom, dead. And, you know, goes pretty quick. So it's kind of weird covering the teams. Maybe there'll be some options on some weeks where it'd make more sense to. But on a week like this, it's literally things you would already be running. You would just run pretty much your standard Explorer 12 Skull team. You would run your quick kill team for low level range, whether that be Rowan, Dust Devil, whatever you happen to have. And yeah, it doesn't have much variant. Like 90% of weeks are going to be that exact same strategy, because you don't have to switch out weapons, you don't have to switch out hero classes, you don't have to switch out anything. Really, you can do the same strategy pretty much every week and you'll get it done. Hey, speaking of done, we actually completed bronze. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have clicked that, because now we don't get to see what that is. Whoops, I don't know what task that is now. I think that was the skull one, I would assume. But because we were just messing with skulls earlier. But that's kind of funny. We can't see what the task is now, no. Oh well, but anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoy your week. I'll catch you guys later. Thank you so much for watching the video. Definitely feel free to leave a like on it. Helps out a lot and is greatly appreciated. I'll catch you guys later. And as I mentioned, we'll be streaming tonight, as we always do, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're kind of wrapping up the campaign, seeing what we could do in that good old world event, and go from there. Anyways, guys, enjoy the week. Bye, everyone. And thanks for watching.